Okay, so in between the last episode and this one, there's been a bit of mining going on, and we're just on the way back from that now. I think a few things were smelted as well in the meantime. Nothing too major. Well, considering mining them, but changed my mind. So the plan from here is to basically set up solar panels on the roof, start solar tracking, and in order to basically protect them from getting storm damage, you have to build walls around them. So here I'm checking that we can actually make a window from these. I believe earlier I made the wrong thing and it was a wall that wouldn't have windows. Now, I didn't realise that windows would have... These windows need plastic. The iron windows need iron, which is, it's much of a muchness, silicon versus iron. There's probably more iron on the map, but who knows. Okay, we're building a tool manufactory. It's essential for replacing lost tools or upgrading tools eventually, and I think I'm looking for an arc welder because the welding torch we have has fuel and that'll run out eventually if we don't do something, so... And here I'm looking at the ingredients for the solar panel, because we have to sort out the power problem at the moment, and this is the way to do it. So, as I start going to collect the resources, I realise that my power is out, so... Oops. That was a bad idea. That stopped everything. Yeah, I'm just going to double check now that the solar panels are actually getting power, because it doesn't feel like it, and oh wow, they're damaged from the storm. Okay, them little red blinks there are telling me that actually, yes, it is working, so that's fine. I was just really worried because it didn't appear to be working, so while we're here we might as well repair the solar panels. And then realise we're going to need more tape than that.
Power critical.
Yeah, leaving machines on is probably not helping our power situation. Now, with the station battery, there's even less reason that we shouldn't be using the solid generator. It produces tons of power, and, well, why wouldn't you? Now, the main reason that people don't use it before getting the battery is because it produces 20 kilowatts, and many grids won't actually use 20 kilowatts, so at this early stage, should I say. So it kind of feels like a huge waste. Okay, coal is a mineable resource. There's technically infinite of it in the game, so it's not like a huge waste, but it does still feel like a waste of time when you're having to mine it.
Hunger critical.
To then have to burn it. So, I don't know how much of a waste it really is, but... Anyway, now there is a battery, it's a good time to go and use that solid generator. However, you can't just plug it into the same grid as the solar panels. and you got to use heavy cable, otherwise it will fry the small cables.
Hydration critical.
So in order to put the solar panels into the input side of the battery, we're going to need to use a transformer to transform their energy into energy that can be carried on the heavy watt wire, which is exactly what we're doing here. We're printing heavy watt wire to run from the generator to the battery, and the transformer to transform the power coming in from the solar panels into that heavy watt cable. If you try to cross heavy watt and normal size standard cable, you're going to burn the cables out. So, just a tip for anyone who's starting out with power networks.
Power low.
I find it's always a good idea to put your jetpack to a button close to the WSAD keys. I'm personally using X at the moment, because if you happen to fall off a ledge, or if you just want to access jetpack fast, having it all the way over at the J key when you're using the mouse to look around, unless you're really good with jumping from WSAD to J and back again very quickly, it just doesn't work. So, and here I realise, why am I going round the houses when I could just use a little bit more of the heavy watt cable and save myself a whole bunch of normal cable. So you want to set this to, well, the small cable can carry a maximum of 5,000, so you want to set it to 4,900. 4.9 kilowatts, basically. So that will feed the... And you can have as many solar panel networks doing that, feeding into one heavy cable as the heavy cable can support. So rather than running heavy watt to every single solar panel, you can just run a bunch of them to a transformer, and as long as it works out cheaper for the transformer, which I believe it will do over the course of a long run of wires, then you're fine. And now I'm sick and tired of not having any power, so it's time to kickstart this power generation by putting in some coal, which, you know, it's fossil fuels and all that, but sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do, am I right? If I can find the place to put it in. And not fall off the edge and hit the power, and then I'm now taking damage. That's really charging the battery, which is really good, but I'm taking damage from being thirsty, so yeah, time to go and sort that out.
Power critical.
Everything's critical. That's one thing we can easily sort out anyway.
Low pressure. Oxygen low.
And that stops all the nasty noises. So we just basically increase double the number of ferns we've got growing there. That'll help with our CO2 conversion. Until we get in a AC, not AC, but well, an atmospheric and AC plant, which there's a little way to go yet before we're ready for one of them. Now, some people do it sooner. If you're on Venus and Vulcan, you might have to do it sooner because temperatures there wouldn't allow you to fudge it like this, as the man said. So, you know, it is what it is. You got to play to the conditions. Now, I've chosen Mars because I'm very, very rusty at this, and well, it's better to be practicing in a way that you can actually play rather than fudging it and dying and not having any footage. Now, the battery's coming along nicely up there. You can hook it up directly to your network at the beginning if you're really desperate for power, and you are really desperate for power. I didn't. Whether or not... it's not turned out to be a huge problem for me, so anyway, on with the solar panels. As you can see, I'm trying to keep the floor free of stuff because, well, until it's encased, if there's another storm, we lose anything that's laying around on the floor, which I really don't want. With the way the furnace loses heat at the moment, I'm reluctant to carry on using it. Plus, when you put ores through, they off-gas, which I will be using the furnace that we've got as a degassing tool, I think, and then have the main furnace will be the advanced furnace, which I believe where I'm at with the footage, we're just about making one. I'm really slow. It feels really slow. I don't know how this compares with other people playing, not gonna lie, but it's still... It feels very slow looking back at the footage anyway. Talking about things being on the floor and not being on the floor and keeping your inventory good, I always overprint lockers at the beginning, sometimes, like, not so far on this playthrough, but I think they're so useful to have. Now, I know some YouTubers, like Nick, for example, who goes by the handle Cows Are Evil, he likes throwing things around on the floor and not having any filing system, which is perfect. If that's the kind of base you want, go for it. Like, it just... Look, in my own life, I find I'm messy, and trying to find things I want when I want them, very difficult. Putting things away makes it a lot easier to know where things are, but I'm not in a survival situation at the moment where my very breath depends on being able to find the things that I need, which, you know, this is why Stationeers is a good... I think it's a great little game. Really tests you to the limits of ingenuity in a stressful environment. Now, obviously you're not there, and you can reload, but... well, you know what I'm trying to say, I hope. Yeah, very nice to see full batteries there on the wall. Brings a feeling of comfort and security. So, that pipe radiator, I believe, was picked up back there is for basically a combination of cooling the room here and also heating up the water from the ice, which just helps with, but the water from the ice doesn't really make a difference at the moment per se for the character, but it does make a difference when it comes down to the hydroponics units, which will go in fairly well a bit later. Now, the room being kept between a certain temperature is also important for the plants. We do have plants at the moment, so it's nice to keep them alive and healthy and happy. Thankfully, they've made it so that the water comes out above freezing now, so it's not slush and slurry in the pipes, so that when you put the water in, you're actually getting the water bottles in, you're actually getting water back from them, which I think earlier renditions of the game, earlier patches, they didn't have that, which made it very frustrating for newbies to actually get the water. So it's coming out at 5 degrees, and it looks perfect to me. Now, one thing I didn't realise is that the water is slowly passed out from that machine to an equilibrium in the pipe network, and I'm not sure what that equilibrium is. Later on, I'm going to have to upgrade that whole network.
Anti-critical.
So this is the standard routine of eating, drinking, oxygenating, releasing waste. Yeah, no, all the usual stuff. Okay, so I finally get to put in the tool manufactory here. And the reason for this, more so than the heavy mining drill, which we need, we can only get that when we get the more advanced, the stage 2 out of the 3 stages of alloys. What's more important at this particular moment is another mining belt, because, well, we have ices that we need to store, and also we don't want to keep having to come back, although we have to keep going in to hydrate. We kind of want to maximize the time we have out. Now, I was just moving things around there to try and get a better place for it, so it's not interfering with the locker, or maybe should I say the locker's not interfering with the output of the printer. And we're just installing it. It's the usual plastic wire, iron sheets, copper cable coils, and then plastic sheets, and the screwdriver. It's once you know what the routine is, it becomes easier to do that. Now, there are mods you can put on after this to make more advanced things, but we'll get round to that eventually. I can't wait till I've got loads of different ingots just lying about the place that I don't have to keep emptying machines. It's a time waste. There are ways of, in the future, maybe using the chute network to just transfer things from one to the other automatically, but even that feels like it takes too much time. I think having an overabundance of ores just lying around the place that you can just shove into whatever machine you're using, and then when one runs out, you grab another ore and stick it in. I think that's probably the best way to do things. It's going to save time, but we'll get there. We need. Look, I want to make an advanced furnace in this playthrough. It might be a few hours away yet. Unfortunately, I'm looking at the footage I've got, and well, it's taking time. Speaking of time, we're going to cut a little bit of time there of messing about, just looking at the printer kind of thing. And also, I kind of have to I pause it here as the sun's coming up, and then load back into the game at a later stage. And so now, before going mining, I'm going to top up with hydration, just so I don't get caught outside wanting food, water, or oxygen or anything. So again, I've sped this up just to save a few minutes, and I'm actually going to cut the mining out again, because There's 8 minutes of mining. Nothing much happens except for mining. Now, I don't think anyone's going to mind if I just cut to the chase, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and unless there's some kind of major outcry in the comments, which I don't think there's going to be, this is how we're going to run it from now on. It saves me a lot of time editing, and potentially you guys a lot of time watching needless stuff. I mean, I can do a whole tutorial on mining if needs be. I didn't think I was going to get into the tutorial side of this game, or any game at the moment. Like, I don't mind explaining how I do things, but that's just in playthroughs, and you can gain information that way. So as you can see here, I've pretty much completely filled 2 mining belts full of ores. Now, you can stack the mining belts in your inventory and go out for longer if you want to, but again, between the night time and, well, at the moment I'm not getting too bad of a warning for the having a drink. Like, you got to drink once a day kind of thing, it looks like here on this difficulty level. I could have spent longer out there. I could have pushed it. I could have maybe filled another bag, especially if I have a heavy mining drill. But by the time we get to the more advanced heavy mining drill, we should have more advanced mining belts. So we'll see. We'll get there. So in preparation for doing another smelting run in the furnace, I'm basically getting a nice selection of ores together so I can easily just pick up what I need, which will essentially just help to make sure the process goes smoothly, I guess, is the best way to put it. Now, I'm not starting the furnace just yet. There's still things I want to be building and still things I want to be doing. I'm going to have to go mining again before it's time to actually do the smelting. We do need more ores before I'll be happy, because I want to try and make one of every intermediate alloy. Like, I need solder, I've got electrum already, I need Imvar, I need Constantan, and I want to try and get some of all of them, and probably more steel as well. So I want to make sure I've got all of that ready. You don't have to do that, but with the new mechanics, especially where it loses heat from the furnace, I just think that, for me, I like to have all of that ready. Now, if you were doing a speed run, or if you were in emergency dire situation for something, then maybe you would be thinking differently to me on this one. Now there I make a mistake of turning it on without closing the eject handle. And yeah, big thing with having steel is having solar panels. So very shortly because we need more power, and urgently need more power, so I'm going to be installing the solar panels fairly soon. I'm sort of working towards. Now, again, this is just going through the refeeding, hydrating cycle. There is a mod where you don't have to do this as often, but it makes the plants grow a lot slower and they need a lot more water, and it looks really interesting, and maybe one day when I'm a bit more experienced with the game, I might give that a go. But at the moment, this is the basic Stationeer settings. I've not changed a thing, so it gives it more repetitiveness, but it makes it a lot more difficult, which is why I went for it. Now, the repetitiveness I can live with. Now there, I was just checking the condition of the room for the plants to make sure they're healthy out.
Oxygen critical.
I
Pressure
forgot
critical.
to close my helmet, so put that back to normal. Open the waste tank, change the battery, all the usual good stuff. So I reviewed this footage, and all I did was basically start print another solar panel, have a look through all the stuff that I've got to plan my mining trip and what I need. That was about it, really. So I thought, rather than do it at normal speed and be painstaking about the detail, you can kind of see what I'm doing there. So I decide to fast forward it. Now, silly me leaves the, what do they call it, the auto lathe on while going out and not having all that much power. The furnace I can kind of understand, but you know, there you can see the battery's only on 2 bars as we're going down, and I will cut the mining part out now. Looks like I forgot the mining belt there, so I could stick a few things in my inventory. Not a bother, not a bother. As you can see, we are really low on hydration at this point, so I had no choice but to come back, even though it's nighttime, and I don't mind a bit of nighttime mining occasionally. We do mind running out of water, hydration, so then I've got a full inventory, so I need to go and put some things away before I can even pick up the gold that's on the floor. I'll try and keep the full stacks, the 50 stacks, over here, just so I've got some kind of order. And even though I've been putting smaller stacks in the small locker over there to begin with, it's high tide that I start using the new locker I put in behind me, but I will get around to that in a second now. More importantly, though, is the fact that I'm losing health because we're so thirsty. Yeah, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, turning off machines is always a good idea. And running out of your first can of food is a bit of a milestone now. It's worth saving the cans for when it comes time to can your own food, which is what I'm doing there. But it is a bit of a milestone. It's like the first wake-up call of, okay, I've got 2 cans left. I need to really start thinking about making hydroponics. And it's the point where you start thinking about it and you want to gear towards it, but it might not be the point where you start actually doing it. When you go through your second can, that's when you're like, oh no. Now, some people probably would be making it faster, especially if they're needing oxygen from plants and stuff like that, but okay, so here I actually start making a mistake because I go for flat wall when actually I should just go for wall. I realise after the fact, but sometimes it's what I would recommend if you're considering playing the game. Obviously, you don't start on Stationeers difficulty, that's asking for problems. Also, take some time in creative mode and see what things are and what they do. Like, there's no harm in that. Just don't live there forever. Remember, there's a game to play and a challenge to be had. And like, I get why people cheat, especially on the older games like GTA, getting health or wanted stars or money and unlocking all the weapons. Yeah, I get all of that. It's fun. But when the whole point of the game is to challenge yourself, like, why would you not take the challenge, you know? Like, that's what the game's there for. So that's why I didn't change the hunger and thirst settings on the difficulty I'm on, because I want to challenge myself to see if it's actually viable. Now, I have done a Europa playthrough on Stationeers difficulty. I say playthrough. Like, sometimes when I say, oh, I've done a playthrough, I mean I've played 10 hours and I've got to a level of being able to basically do whatever I want because I've got nothing holding me back in terms of resources. I've reached the survival, you know, the place of survival where I'm not worried about air and water anymore. So, okay, I don't have enough iron for the lockers, so I need to do some more of that, and I think just checking to make sure I don't have any lockers
Air
already.
tank low.
I realise I have to bring in food. And then I realise, I think I've made the wrong walls. Let's see, can I do windows with that? No. Can I do windows with that? Yeah. Okay, that was a mistake. Anyway, so I realise, and unfortunately I think I got windows in, now I've got walls in 2 separate places. I don't even know if I've put them together yet, but that's part of the inventory management, remembering where you put things. Remembering to top up your air tank when you take a drink, you know, that kind of thing.
Anti-critical.
Now, in hindsight, when I were already in the room having to cycle airlocks, I could have taken a top up of water and food, but I didn't. So, anyway, back out here, we're getting on with these. Now, the reason I'm printing these walls is because it's time to put the solar panels up, and I want to make sure that they're stormproof, basically. And I'm also there looking for the oxygen system that needs to go in as well. Now is when we start getting into the nitty-gritty of what needs to be done. Like, it's taken me an in-game week to get to this stage. A lot of it's been mining and setting up the basics, which is a bit slow, which is why I'm doing this on Mars and not doing it on, let's say, Venus or Vulcan, because I don't think I'd be in well practiced enough already for them environments just yet. One thing I will say about Venus and Vulcan is, although they're hot places, which is bad for a lot of reasons, you do get basically a free furnace if you know what you're doing. So there is that. There are benefits and drawbacks to every planet, but generally speaking, Mars is accepted as one of the easiest. And it's for that reason that I'm playing on Mars and not the other places, not because I'm a big fan of Mars or anything, by the way. Anyway, here we've got some logic chips coming out. Now, they're going to be important for the solar tracking array. Now, they're solar panels. They do follow the sun, but you can't just throw them up and expect them to work. You have to basically program some chips. Now, I would program an IC chip. An IC chip rather than a logic chip, a logic circuit. However, we don't have the alloys for that. Now, you could argue that I should have gone out mining and made them before making the solar array, but this is a really early game kind of setup, which I guess is good to show new people. If it's become a lot easier than when I first started playing as well. I had to research how to make this happen because it was frustratingly annoying, but thankfully it's been changed to be a bit more user-friendly, let's say. So lots of printing. Now I'm under the impression that I need steel sheets for the steel window frames, and I actually have that wrong. But at the moment, you always need steel sheets, you always need steel frames, you always need cable coil. Well, I say always. When you're building the base, you always need these things. You can't really have too many. One day I will build a stacker, but that day is not today. Now at this point, probably due to reloading at some point, I don't have my tool belt open, and so feel like I'm out of space to do something with them cable coils, so I had to rearrange stuff there. And then I realised, actually, there it is. I have them in my tool belt all along. Now, I might actually change that later. I'm still not sure yet. The ones in the back wall, but the roof, we definitely need the roof. Now that's our locker for incomplete stacks, let's call it, and ices. Stuff that's not complete stacks, go here. And time to sort out that overhead locker, basically. I'll get round to sorting out all the lockers eventually, but can't tell you when. I still haven't done that yet. Just so you know, I am editing about 5 hours of gameplay at the moment, but I went all the way through, and now I'm coming back to edit through. It's a choice I regret, I have to say. But in the future, I'm gonna record and produce in quick succession. And I'm also probably going to do jump cuts, so I won't actually record certain amounts of footage, or I'll make a separate recording in case anything weird happens. Probably I'll just won't record, because why keep the extra footage? It's not something that people will be interested in, I don't think. So here I'm putting up the basic frame for the solar panels. I say basic frame, it's to shield them from storms. We've had a storm already, and it damages stuff, so the best way to combat that is to lock them in glass. Now it does reduce the efficiency of the panels, but it's a small price to pay, especially considering we don't have the advanced materials to make hardened panels. And even if you have the materials to make hardened panels, I don't know, I'd have to do a cost-benefit analysis on how many panels you need per panel and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Obviously, there will come a point where it's just easier to make the hardened ones than this, but this is what we've got for now, and, well, this is what I'm going to go with. And there I'm realising I need plastic sheets rather than iron or steel sheets. And you don't need to use the welder for them either. Like normal panels down there didn't need a welder, these ones don't. But obviously this is actually the first time I've used these ones in my 3 playthroughs. Now, sometimes you do get that with these panels. It can be quite frustrating. And if it does happen, you just move to another corner and it'll work then. So I've come back down into the base to grab the solar panels at this stage. And I'll also need some glass, which I remember kind of while I'm on the way.
Hydration critical.
I kind of struggled to get through the frame at this stage, but we get there in the end. Now there's two different types of solar panels, one with the power and the data in the same port and one with separate ports. Now, when I've set these systems up in the past, I've found that the solar tracking doesn't work unless it's got power, and the station batteries tend to drain that power completely from whatever network they're on. Now at this point I'm just making sure I know which way is 00 for the panel, because I'm going to need to face the daylight sensor in that direction. So with the station battery draining all the power, there's not enough power for the logic chips to be able to move the solar panels in the morning, and it just creates a really bad situation. So based on that, I used the dual setup and have a separate circuit powered by the small solar panels, and then the main power circuit with the big panels goes in a separate direction. It's the only solution I can find. So now at this point I'm sticking in panels and finding it difficult to squeeze past a solar panel there, which is much of a muchness. I've also realised I'm going to need some sensors, well, a daylight sensor, and then I've remembered, well, actually, there should be a sensor in the kit that came on the lander, so... And as I already need to get a drink anyway, it's, you know... But, that being said, I realise, actually, I've forgotten to pick up the food on the way in, which, that was clever. So, anyway, I've taken the corn, why not? Canned corn.
Low pressure.
Like, that's something I have in the past eaten raw when I've had no choice myself. So, there's our new can of food for the foreseeable. Now, when that runs out, then we know we've got problems. Now, I wasn't thinking quite clearly at this point, because I come out and I realised I went in there for sensors, and yeah, that's the second time I've accidentally opened the doors too quickly as well, and now I'm looking at the amount of X in there and going, you know what, we'll keep it, I'm not that fussed. And here's the sensors that we came in for, but we got sidetracked by alarms. So, back out, and again, nearly forgetting. I got to put in an automated dialogue at some point. I think that would sort the problem out. And we're back up to carry on with the tracking. So, as I said before, the sensor, the rounded part has to face the same direction as the 0 degrees of the solar panel, and you saw me earlier finding which way 0 was, but instead of putting the sensor down first, I'm going to see what we need to do with the chips. Now, we're going to need a logic reader and a batch writer. I realise I put the wrong one down here, so we want it to be reader, batch writer. Now, the reader reads from a device, like a, I don't know, daylight sensor, for example. The writer writes to a device. The batch writer writes to a bunch of devices on the network, so you have to separate networks using either an area power controller or a transformer would do the trick as well. So there's our sensor. Now they've made this really simple from what it used to be. All you need to do the horizontal tracking is basically take the reading from the daylight sensor, as long as it's facing the same way as the panel does at 0. It's a direct translation, and then batch write it back to the panels. That's as simple as it has to be. So here I'm putting down the cabling, and I'm trying to do as minimal messing about as possible, so putting down the right cables as I'm putting it down, rather than splicing them in as much as possible. Now, there's going to be occasional times when I have to splice, and occasional moments like that one where I'm pressing C to rotate things rather than using the insert home, page up, page down, and delete keys, which I need for more practice with, but it's just so much easier to use C. If I have to take my hand off the mouse to mess around with M keys to put my hand back on the mouse, it feels a lot far slower than just hitting C, which is right underneath my index finger. So there we go, horizontal writing out. That's the horizontal one of them done. Simple as that. So we need to power these up. That's the top input. Now the side ports, the left one's the input, the right one's the output on them two. That's all connected. That's all done. Except for power, we're ready to go with that. But we need to do the vertical as well. Now on Mars, realistically, you don't even need the horizontal. The vertical would be fine, but because it's so close to going straight overhead, it's unreal. But I like being extra, going the extra mile in this case. So now I'm thinking about where to put the next batch. Can I squeeze them in on the two frames that are already up and running? And then I decide, no, not really. I'm going to have to put at least one more frame. I'm going to try and squeeze it in. Again, I take a bit of time to play around with the positioning. Maybe more time than I should have. And also, no, I don't want a logic reader there. I want a batch writer there, so... the joys. But we also need a maths unit now, so... Basically, if you've had a second sensor and placed it on the wall where the sun comes up, you could directly write that number to the panels, and it would work that way. However, when your sensor is flat on the surface facing upwards, your reading that comes from it is 90 degrees off from the actual sun angle. So all you have to do in that case is subtract 90 from the sun, from the angle that it's giving you, and you have the number that you need. So now in moving it, I've got the wrong unit, and I'm also thinking, where am I going to put the batch rider? Looking round, I then test, can I put it here? With the wire work? Anyway, I've decided I'm going to cut a long story short and speed up the gory details of where the mistakes were made and what I did wrong, and just kind of fast forward to the point where I'm saying to myself, what am I doing here? I'm agonizing over a few bits of cable and a tiny amount of space. Like, the rest of it's pretty much done. I think I have to change a few things along the way, but I'm really agonizing over, like, just a couple of cables. Now I realize there's 4 ports. I'm just agonizing over nothing. Like, a few cables and a little tiny bit of space, which is silly. Like, I could have even sped that up faster, but like, I'm thinking, where to put this? Where can I put this? You know what? I'll put it here and splice the cables and it'll be fine. It might look a mess. It doesn't have to be neat. So there are basically 2 ways of dealing with logic chips. The first one is to very neatly and tidily make sure that the input of one goes to the output of the other, and keep the power separate, and so on and so on. Or you can just make sure all the inputs and outputs are connected. Now, we're setting this to 90 because it's going to be subtracted from the vertical. So that's what this maths unit is all about. it'll be on when it has power. Then this has to... I've realised I've got the wrong thing. This has to be a batch writer, not a logic reader. So here we go again, changing things around. That's just part of being silly, because they're all the same kit, so you have to make sure you're putting down the right thing. I've accidentally put down AC units when I'm trying to put down air filters, you name it, and I wouldn't be the first person or the last person to do that. So just watch out when you're doing this kind of thing. Now, that may have messed up the programming had it been put in properly at that point, but it hasn't, and I haven't hooked up to the daylight sensor yet either. But I will now, just because there's more than one thing on the network. Now, if you don't want to label them, you keep things on a separate network until it's time to put them together. So I've done everything that needed to be put together. The batch writer has already been hooked up to the maths unit. Sorry, the logic reader. The maths unit has already been hooked up to the logic reader, and that's the only thing that has a duplicate. The batch writer will read from, and the batch writer was, yeah, I've hooked up all the duplicates anyway. So turn all of that on. Now the problem is power. So we're going to take, and I can't squeeze in there, so, well, we might as well take down you. So what I'm going to do is use the small solar panels that I've got to basically supply power to the logic network and the big solar panels. Now, unfortunately, there's going to be a fair bit of wastage here because I think maybe even one panel's enough. I don't know, but I'm just being sure. So I'm having one face the sun, one face the midday sun. That's going to charge an APC battery, which will make sure that them circuits run until at least the sun goes down, and then when the sun comes up, it'll charge them again. I haven't sat there and seen how much power they're actually going to use. I'm not that fussed. Like, the main panels that we're going to put in will give us more than enough power to last through what we're doing at the moment anyway, at least. And you can see there's a couple of error codes there because we don't have any solar panels in at the moment, so let's fix that. Now I think to myself, apart from what a wonderful world, that this is a good way to test it, and we will soon see if it looks like it's on point or not. It looks okay, so, but we need access to them, so I'm gonna basically put them down in the place where they're gonna live. Mr. Cable, sometimes it's a good idea to do the cabling before you put down anything that's going to occlude it, so that you can see what you're doing. I will find that missing cable at some point, but I'm already realizing, it's not working. What's going on?
Hydration critical.
There we go. Got you in the end. Sometimes you'll find it's easier to start at one end or the other and work from that. There's something you pick up as you play. And we're out of cables, so I'm now thinking, well, this could do with a bit of a rework. Maybe we'll make enough cables to hook this up before having to go downstairs and back upstairs and all around stairs. Like, I'm going to need more cables eventually, but maybe we should neaten this up while we're here. I'm trying to get some sun before it goes down. And we might as well make it as efficiently as possible while we're already here with our tools out. Saves duplicating work. Really have to learn the alt keys. Well, sorry, the page up, page down, home end. Now I'm pushing this as long as I can go before getting a drink, because I'm sick of having to go and get a drink. Get there in the end. There I'm realizing out of power, so we're not going to get any more tonight anyway, so... And while I've got the glass in hand, it's a good idea to go around and finish off as much of this as possible. I'm hoping before the next storm, but... well, I won't spoil it.
Air tank low.
Okay, I'm running out of health, I'm running out of air, I'm running out of everything. It's probably time to go and do the usual. And you know, I'm looking at the time. On that note, I think we're going to call this an episode. So, thanks for watching. I hope the series is entertaining in some way for you. And if it is, please hit the like button so I know that it's entertaining people. It's taking a lot of work to do this one versus the other series. It's a labour of love right now. I'm hoping that it gains traction. It's an obscure game. It is what it is. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.